Intrusive thoughts. You are standing in a checkout line, half listening to the ambient store music, when a thought arrives. It is not a pleasant one. It involves the person in front of you and a scenario you would never, under any circumstances, choose to enact. The thought is vivid. It arrives fully formed, like a message you didn't send. And the moment you notice it, a second wave hits, a wave of shame about having thought the first thing at all. You are not unusual. You are not dangerous. What just happened to you has happened to 94% of people, documented by Radomsky at Concordia University in 2014 across a multi-country study that cataloged the intrusive thought experiences of healthy adults. The content category doesn't matter. Violence, blasphemy, sexual scenarios involving the deeply inappropriate, all of it appears in the thought streams of ordinary people who would be horrified to have it shared aloud. The mechanism was named decades earlier. Daniel Wegner at Harvard, 1987, ran an experiment so simple it feels like a prank. He told subjects not to think about a white bear. He asked them to ring a bell every time the white bear appeared in their mind. The bell rang, on average, more than once per minute. The act of suppression created a mental monitor that constantly checked for the forbidden content, and in checking for it, kept triggering it. Wegner called this the ironic process theory. The harder you push, the more the thought returns. What's actually happening in your skull is closer to cognitive noise cancellation than intention. Your prefrontal cortex runs a continuous filter on motor and verbal outputs, the things you actually do and say, but it doesn't run that same filter on thought generation. Thought generation, handled partly by the default mode network and semantic association cortices, fires laterally, randomly, pulling from everything stored. The system produces candidates for conscious attention, not screened outputs. Most candidates are discarded in milliseconds. The strange ones cross the threshold of noticeability. The thoughts aren't you. They're the unfiltered candidate pool your brain generates before you choose. Every writer, parent, and devoted partner in history has experienced the category of thought that would horrify them if externalized. The question isn't whether you have them. The question is why you ever assumed you were the one writing every sentence. The earworm. There is a fragment of a melody playing in your head right now. Or there was an hour ago. Or there will be by tonight. It may be a song you actively dislike. It may be the chorus of something you heard once briefly in a cafe and cannot name. It loops. It does not ask permission to loop. It simply does, the way a refrigerator hums. Vicky Williamson at Goldsmiths, University of London, spent years cataloging this phenomenon, which she called involuntary musical imagery. Her 2012 research, pulling from diary studies and large-scale surveys, found that 98% of people experience earworms, and that the experience is not random. Certain melodic features make a song more adhesive than others. Relatively simple but slightly irregular rhythms, a gap in the melodic contour that the brain wants to resolve, and a moderate tempo sitting between 100 and 130 BPM. The brain isn't broken when it loops these patterns. It's doing something that looks like compulsive file checking. James Kelleris at the University of Cincinnati has studied what he calls cognitive itch theory. The brain perceives an incomplete pattern and, like a tongue finding a gap in a tooth, cannot leave it alone. The loop is the brain's attempt to finish the fragment, to bring the incomplete thing to resolution. The catch is that resolution never satisfies. The fragment reemerges. The loop restarts. The brain structures involved are auditory cortex and supplementary motor area, the same region that lights up when you imagine physical movement. Music earworms activate motor planning. That is why it is almost impossible to suppress one without replacing it. The motor loop has to go somewhere. The research-backed technique isn't resistance, it's replacement with a song that has a clear, satisfying ending. Your brain wants closure. Give it a different door. The earworm playing in your head right now, or the one that just started because you're thinking about this, wasn't chosen. It was planted by a melody engineer who understood exactly what gaps in a chord structure the primate brain cannot ignore. You experience it as spontaneous. It was, to some degree, designed. Confabulation in healthy people. Imagine you're in a psychology lab in Lund, Sweden in 2005. A researcher shows you two photographs of faces. You pick the more attractive one. The researcher slides the image across the table toward you. You look at it. You explain why you chose it. The strong jawline, the symmetry, the expression. You are confident. You are articulate. You are also describing a photograph you did not choose. The researcher swapped them while your attention shifted. You are confabulating, and you have no idea. Lars Hall and colleagues at Lund University called this choice blindness. In the original 2005 study, published in Science, participants failed to notice the swap 74% of the time, and not only failed to notice it, but generated entirely coherent, internally consistent explanations for a preference they never expressed. The left hemisphere, responsible for language and narrative, does not merely report decisions, it invents stories about them. This wasn't a new insight. It had roots in Michael Gazzaniga's split brain research from the 1960s, where patients whose corpus callosi had been severed for epilepsy treatment would perform an action with the right hand, controlled by the nonverbal right hemisphere, and then confabulate an elaborate verbal reason for it via the left hemisphere, which had no access to the actual cause. But Hall's work showed the phenomenon wasn't limited to surgically altered brains. It operates in yours every day. The confabulation isn't lying. That's the unsettling part. The person who defends their swapped preference genuinely believes the explanation they're generating. The interpreter, Gazzaniga's term for the left brain's narrative module, constructs post hoc stories about behavior and calls them reasons. Your sense of having deliberated, having weighed options, having arrived at conclusions through a rational process, that story is partly a retrospective narration, not a live documentary. Think of the last preference you defended, the last opinion you explained. You experienced yourself as someone who had reasons. What Lund and Harvard and decades of split brain research suggest is that the experience of having reasons may often follow the behavior rather than causing it. The narrator arrived after the story was already underway. Semantic satiation. Pick a word, any word. Door works fine. Say it aloud. Say it again. Say it 10 times in a row at a steady pace. By the time you've said it 15 or 20 times, something has happened to it. The word no longer sounds like a word. It has become a pattern of sounds, arbitrary, floating, disconnected from the thing it names. The door has stopped being a door. It is a sound your mouth makes. Leon Jakubowicz James at McGill University named this semantic satiation in 1962. His experimental work showed that the semantic, meaning response, associated with a word, measurable via galvanic skin response and reaction time, degrades with rapid repetition. The brain's semantic module, responsible for tethering the sound pattern to its meaning, appears to exhaust. Not permanently. Give it a few seconds and the word reconstitutes, but the window in which the word is meaningless is real and reproducible. What semantic satiation reveals is not a quirk or a bug. It is a window into what meaning actually is. Meaning is not stored in a word the way data is stored on a disk. Meaning is an active construction, the brain's dynamic linking of a phoneme sequence to a network of associations, memories, sensory predictions, and social contexts. It requires ongoing neural computation to exist. When that computation is disrupted by repetition fatigue, meaning temporarily collapses. You are doing this construction constantly without noticing. Every sentence you read requires the rapid assembly and disassembly of meaning packets. The seamlessness of that process, the way language feels transparent, like a window rather than a wall, is the result of enormous parallel processing that you experience as nothing at all. The moment semantic satiation strikes, the machinery becomes visible. The window becomes a mirror. The next time language feels effortless, and it will in approximately the next 30 seconds, consider that the effortlessness is not simplicity. It is the invisibility of complexity running at full power. You have no direct access to the computation that produces meaning. You only ever see the result, which raises a question about what else you're only ever seeing the result of. Priming. You are in a hallway at Yale University. You have just completed what appeared to be a word puzzle, unscrambling sentences, nothing more. You hand in your sheet and gather your things. You leave the room. You walk toward the elevator. A researcher is timing, without your knowledge, how long it takes you to cover 45 feet of corridor. The experiment, as far as you understand it, is over. It has not yet begun. John Bark and colleagues at Yale published in 1996 one of the most replicated and debated findings in social psychology. Participants who unscrambled sentences seeded with words associated with aging, retired, wrinkled, Florida, forgetful, walked measurably slower down that hallway than participants who unscrambled neutral sentences. The words had entered the participants' processing systems. The processing systems had updated behavioral outputs. None of the participants noticed, because none of the participants were conscious of their processing system at the level where priming operates. Bark's work on behavioral priming opened an entire research lineage. Subsequent work found that participants exposed to money-related imagery before a task persisted longer alone and requested less help from others. Participants exposed to professor-related concepts performed better on trivia. Participants exposed to concepts of cleanliness made harsher moral judgments of others. The pattern is consistent. Environmental exposure to semantic content updates behavioral and cognitive outputs in ways that feel spontaneous. The mechanism involves spreading activation. When a concept is activated in semantic memory, related concepts become temporarily more accessible. This priming cascade happens below conscious attention, in the milliseconds before you decide what to do or say or think. By the time you experience yourself as deciding, the semantic landscape is already been seeded. Every environment you inhabit is seeding you. The ambient words in a waiting room, the metaphors used in a meeting, the emotional register of the last thing you read before making a decision. These are not background noise. They are inputs to a system that you do not have full visibility into, producing outputs you experience as your own choices. The thought feels original. The priming was not. The Anchoring Cascade in Daily Estimates. Here's a question. Did Mahatma Gandhi die before or after the age of 140? Obviously after, you think. He was 78. Now, estimate his actual age at death. People who are asked the before or after 140 version estimate significantly older ages at death than people who are asked before or after 9. The anchor, the obviously absurd number, still pulls your estimate toward it. You knew it was absurd. It did not matter. Fritz Strack and Thomas Musweiler demonstrated this in 1997 in a landmark study of anchoring effects on biographical estimates. Participants given a high anchor, 140, for Gandhi's age, consistently estimated his death at a higher age than those given a low anchor, 9, despite both anchors being obviously impossible. The absurdity did not protect against the bias. What the research showed was that the anchor works not by suggesting a plausible value, but by activating anchor-consistent information in memory. The brain retrieves evidence consistent with the anchor and uses that evidence to calibrate an estimate. Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman had originally identified anchoring in 1974 as a primary heuristic of human judgment under uncertainty. Their work established that people confronted with an unfamiliar quantity do not compute from first principles. They start from whatever number is available and adjust, and the adjustment is almost always insufficient. The starting point contaminates the end point. In practical daily life, anchoring operates on negotiation. The first number named dominates. Pricing, the original price on a sale tag, controls willingness to pay. Hiring decisions, the first salary offered anchors all future estimates of value. And medical diagnosis, the first hypothesis a clinician forms makes subsequent differential thinking harder. The mechanism runs before you have access to it. Consider the number you saw most recently before sitting down to whatever you were doing before this. A price, a time, a count. That number is in your processing system. It is nudging estimates you have not yet made. The anchor was set before the question was asked. You will feel like you reasoned your way to a number. You will have been calibrated from the outside. Social contagion of behavior. Think of the person you spend the most time with. Not online time, physical, proximate, recurring time. Consider their habits, how much they drink, how they eat, how long they sit, what they find funny, what they find worth complaining about. Now consider how much of what you believe to be your own relationship to those categories has been quietly calibrated by theirs. Not the obvious influences you're already aware of, the ones you have no record of acquiring. Nicholas Christakis at Harvard and James Fowler at UC San Diego published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2007 a longitudinal social network analysis of more than 12,000 people over 32 years. Their finding? If a close friend of yours becomes obese, your own probability of becoming obese increases by 57%. If a friend of your friend becomes obese, someone you may have met once or never, your probability still increases by 20%. The behavioral influence propagated through 3 degrees of social separation. You were being shaped by the behavior of people you did not know. The authors called this social contagion. Not metaphorically, they use the epidemiological framework deliberately. Behaviors spread through social networks via the same diffusion dynamics as pathogens. Contact rate, network topology, and transmission probability all apply. Smoking cessation, drinking, loneliness, happiness, and divorce rates all showed similar propagation patterns in subsequent analyses. You were not vaccinated against your network's behavioral outputs. Neither was anyone. The mechanism is not peer pressure. That implies conscious influence and deliberate choice to conform. What Christakis and Fowler documented was subtler. Exposure to behavioral norms in one's immediate environment shifts what the brain registers as normal, expected, and safe. The norm is absorbed. The behavior follows. The person believes they've simply changed. They are partially correct. Your most stable habits, the ones you identify with, the ones that feel like expressions of personality rather than products of environment, were set largely during the periods of your life when you were in the densest social proximity to specific people. You did not choose those habits. You contracted them. And somewhere in a social network adjacent to yours, someone is right now contracting something of yours. The Zeigarnik Effect on open loops. There is a conversation you have not finished, not just a sentence left dangling, a whole unresolved situation, a disagreement you walked away from, a message you saw but haven't replied to, a project in an ambiguous state, a thing someone said 3 weeks ago that you still haven't processed fully. You know the one. It just surfaced, unbidden, while you were reading about something else entirely. That is not coincidence. That is your brain doing exactly what it was wired to do. Bluma Zeigarnik was a Lithuanian psychologist studying in Berlin in the 1920s when her supervisor, Kurt Lehn, made an observation in a cafe. Waiters had perfect detailed memory of orders that had not yet been delivered, but forgot those orders almost immediately once the bill was paid. Zeigarnik designed an experiment. Participants completed various tasks. Some were interrupted before completion, others were allowed to finish. Memory for incomplete tasks was, on average, twice as strong as completed ones. The effect was named for her. The cognitive mechanism appears to involve what researchers now call a memory flag. The brain maintains an active, elevated access representation of incomplete tasks, keeping them near the surface of working memory so they can be resumed. Completion closes the loop, and the elevated access is released. Incompletion maintains it indefinitely if the task is never resolved. Every unfinished thing you're aware of is running a background process, not metaphorically, measurably. Kenneth McGraw and colleagues replicated and extended Zeigarnik's work, showing the effect holds even when individuals believe they have consciously let go of the incomplete task. The cognitive flag persists regardless of subjective intention. The feeling of having moved on and the neural reality of continued elevated activation are not the same thing. You think you've stopped thinking about it. Your brain has not received that memo. Every unread email, every task marked someday, every conversation paused on an unresolved note is occupying attentional bandwidth you did not consciously allocate. The intrusion you feel, the way unfinished things appear in your mind during commutes, in the shower, in the gap between sleeping and waking, is the Zeigarnik flag surfacing. Your productivity system does not go dark when you close the laptop. It idles, unquiet, on tasks you chose not to finish. The default mode network. What are you doing when you are doing nothing? The question seems trivial until someone asks it while watching your brain with a functional MRI scanner. Marcus Reichel at Washington University was studying brain activation patterns in 2001 when he noticed something that the scientific community had been systematically ignoring. In the intervals when subjects were at rest, between tasks, unfocused, not asked to perform, a specific network of brain regions became highly active. He expected to see a brain at idle. He found a brain at work on something else. Reichel named it the default mode network. It includes the medial prefrontal cortex, posterior cingulate cortex, angular gyrus, and hippocampal formation, regions associated with self-referential thought, episodic memory retrieval, social cognition, and future simulation. When you are not directed by an external task, these regions activate in concert and begin running what are effectively unsupervised cognitive rehearsals, imagining future social interactions, replaying past ones, simulating outcomes, constructing and evaluating models of other people's mental states. The metabolic cost is substantial. The default mode network consumes approximately 20% of the brain's total energy budget while active, compared to roughly 5% additional demand imposed by focused cognitive tasks. The resting brain is the expensive one. What this means is that the vast majority of your brain's lifetime energy expenditure has been allocated to thoughts you did not consciously choose to have about futures and pasts and people that your brain selected for rehearsal without consulting you. Matthew Killingsworth and Daniel Gilbert at Harvard tracked 2,250 adults in real time using an experience sampling app in 2010 and found that mind wandering from their current activity approximately 47% of waking hours, and that mind wandering, regardless of content, is associated with lower happiness scores than task-focused attention. The default mode network is active, expensive, and, at least by one measure, making you less satisfied than you would be if you were simply doing the task in front of you. Right now, while you process this sentence, there is a background simulation running. A conversation you had last week is being retrieved and re-edited. A future situation is being rehearsed with probable dialogue. A social calculation is being updated. You did not assign any of this. Your brain's default program runs continuously, consuming your resources, generating content you will experience later as memory or anticipation or unbidden imagination. You are not the editor. You are the one who receives the drafts. Thought insertion in non-clinical populations. There is a category of thought that arrives differently. Not the intrusive thought, which feels like noise from inside. Not the earworm, which feels mechanical. This one has a different texture. It feels placed, not generated, not remembered, arrived from somewhere else. You notice it, identify it as a thought you just had, and then, for a fraction of a second, have the strange sense that you were not the one who generated it. It passes quickly. You assume it was nothing. It wasn't nothing. Quentin Deely at King's College London, in research published in 2017, documented what he and colleagues termed thought insertion in non-clinical populations, the occasional experience in otherwise healthy adults of thoughts that feel externally sourced rather than internally generated. The prevalence was 7 to 10% of the general adult population reporting at least occasional experiences of this type, not the florid, persistent insertion associated with psychosis, one-off moments, brief, passing, in people with no mental health diagnosis. The significance is philosophical before it is clinical. Thought insertion is typically studied as a symptom, something that at high frequency and intensity indicates disruption of the neural mechanisms by which the brain tags its own outputs as self-generated. The tagger is called the sense of agency, and it operates via predictive processing. The brain generates a prediction of what thought or action it is about to produce and compares that prediction to the actual output. When the match is close, the output is tagged as self-authored. When the match fails, it can be experienced as external. The point is not that 7 to 10% of people are experiencing psychotic symptoms without knowing it. The point is that the self-authorship tag is a constructed experience, not a guaranteed one. The feeling that a thought is yours, originated by you, generated through your intentions, is produced by a neural matching process that occasionally misfires in ordinary brains. Your certainty that your thoughts are yours is built on an inference, not a direct perception. Consider what you thought between waking up this morning and starting whatever you did first, not the deliberate thoughts, the ones that came before deliberation. The sentence that arrived first, the image, the mood state that preceded any conscious choosing of a mood. You do not know where those came from. Your brain tagged them as yours because the origin matching system ran its check and returned a self-attribution. But the check runs fast, and it runs imperfectly. And somewhere in the margin of that imperfection is the possibility that authorship, the clean, continuous, first-person experience of thinking, is a story the brain is telling slightly after the fact. You are the thinker. The question is whether you were always the author.